Ladies and gentlemen, today we're talking about one of the more freaky champions in the game, and I don't think I need to explain why I say so. Today we're talking about Venumpool. Since he's one of the champions that we can get from the Crucible rewards, and also cause they kept forcing me in the Discord group, we're gonna be covering him first, but we're also gonna be taking a look at each and every one of these. But back to the main man himself, he's a very solid cosmic champion once you fully ramp him up, and his performance might actually shock you at a higher rank. But like we always do with these kinds of videos, let's actually go over all of his abilities first, and then later on discuss why nobody plays him. He starts each fight with a cooking meter, which begins at 50 charges and gains 10 charges every 5 seconds, and whenever either champion attacks, he'll actually be granted 4 extra charges. Each time his cooking meter hits 100, the amount will then be spent to provide him one of the buffs below, which are indefinite and can be one of the following: a precision buff that increases his critical rating, an energized buff giving him 15% extra combat power rate, a Clintar mutation buff granting him additional amounts of attack rating, and if he's fighting a Spider-Verse champion, his attacks will actually ignore passive evade effects, a Hunter Spider buff allowing his attacks to deal 25% additional physical damage, and lastly a Malice buff which gives him up to 100% Fury buff potency based on how long the fight has actually gone on, and the max bonus for this is 200 seconds. These buffs do not stack, and once he's actually obtained 5 of them, whenever he would gain one, he instead gains stacking Fury buffs. As for his illogical DNA, which triggers only when fighting tech champions, he gains immunity to power drain, power burn, shock as well as armor break debuffs, and if an effect is prevented in this way, he gains 50 charges of his cooking meter, and the cooldown for this is 2 seconds. But as for his heavy attack, it re-rolls the most recently gained blender buff, and if the opponent is knocked down while he has one of these buffs, he'll have a 100% chance to gain a vicious buff, increasing the potency of damage over time debuffs by 60%, and this buff lasts for 5 seconds per unique buff. Each of his special attacks have a 100% chance to inflict a bleed debuff, causing a certain amount of direct damage per level of special attack used. Against #robot champions, the bleed becomes a degen instead. But speaking of special attacks, the special one. Each hit has a 75% chance to omnom one of each unique buffs on the opponent, removing it and granting 50 of his cooking meter charges. And if the buff that was omnommed was an armor up buff, he will also gain a regen buff, recovering a certain amount of health over 5 seconds. But as for his special 2, if the attack is thrown while intercepting the opponent, it has a 100% chance to inflict a stun debuff lasting for 3 seconds, and if Venumpool is able to finish his moonwalk after the attack, he gains a temporary duplicate of each of his blender buffs lasting for 20 seconds, and if the dance is actually interrupted, he will gain a power gain buff granting him 1 bar of power over 10 seconds. And last but not least, the special 3. His cooking meter will become spicy for 20 seconds, which causes it to build up twice as fast, and if the cooking meter hits 100 while it's spicy, all personal bleeds as well as degen debuffs will be paused for 8 seconds. But moving on to his awakened ability, he gains a pre-fight ability which allows him to choose one of his blender buffs, making it more likely to appear, and it also gains increased potency, and each time he enters a fight, he actually gains one of these charges back. And that is pretty much it for all of his abilities. He's definitely a cosmic champion since he has all those buffs, and I don't know what kind of beef he has against tech champions, but the man is an absolute beast against them. But anyways, onto this man's attire, and Hey yo! The obvious body part aside, why does he have shackles on his wrists as well as his legs? And with the way he's moving that tongue around, nah man, it can't be. But that aside, the design is pretty basic if you ask me. It's literally just Venom with Deadpool's clothes stitched on top of it or something, which is a very unique design, but I don't know man. I'm definitely not the biggest fan of it, but I do think it's sort of a good idea, or I don't even know. I do like how he has the swords at the back and the way he's buffed like crazy, but that's also kind of funny. If Venom can change the shape of his body, why is he shaped like this and not like this? Overall, the drip is not bad, and I think I'll be giving this a 6 out of 10. But anyways, on to the topic of why nobody plays him. And for this, I feel like even though we'll be able to choose him as a 7-star, not many people are gonna be choosing him. Even though I do think he's a very good champion with a lot of utility, only against tech champions though. When you take a look at the meta today, this dude is definitely not up there. When you compare his damage to some of the newer additions to the game, not those ones, it'll never be a thing of you choosing him over the top 6 best cosmics. Since he only has utility against tech champions as well, there's not many fights you'd bring him over anyone else, which is definitely disappointing because it pretty much just limits the uses that he would have had. But of course, when you're bringing him against a tech champion, he's one of the better champions that you can bring. His ramp up will be insanely fast, especially if his immunities get triggered, and the damage will be much more, specifically because his furies don't have a max limit to them, but even then it doesn't make him a top tier champion. But if you don't care too much about the meta and all that, I do think he's a very good champion as well as a great pickup. If you're choosing him for the damage, then I don't think that's a good move, but if you're choosing him because you like him, I wonder why you like him. But that's pretty much it for Venumpool. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think of him, whether you're gonna be picking him up or if you're gonna be taking someone else like the rest of us. Make sure to join my Discord group, the link will be down in the description. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace!
Out 325. Ice and sugar, 3 minutes 25 seconds in Soweto. Mkusha stosh, Botsotso, Kushma Gesh, Tembalama Pomosha, Kusheshe, Santa Sempene, be my wife. Santa Sabokuluva, Nabokuluvagas. Was a little Jimino Police I Soweto. Tipanuel Hamba Pants, is Twaras stupid. Imote Chonchimale, Power Packs Peace. Imoto Yom Sebins, where no Pumexeno Varashela Belungu, Westo Kapa Pepele Nokshin. Mkule Wabolova, Gangsters Paradise. Umthoba inhliziyo wezintandane mabagrebusha enhlizweni njengegwijo mduduzo abafelokazi umthandazo wabo